One way I had of developing a story was to invent a dramatis personae and try to play, as if with dolls and plastic cars, a story in which there would be a lot of conflict. And the story was built on conflict. The Saratoga Performing Arts Center had recently opened. You can see its effect. The guy with the torch at the top of the page doesn't really care for Edward Villella. The three knights in shining armor at the bottom of the page seem to be slightly obsessed with Barbara Eden as a you take your cultural cues where you can find them. Sometimes, to get a story started, I would take an exciting picture and draw it first, and then ask myself the famous questions of journalism. Who, what, where, when, and why? Who is this lady in the red dress? Where is this castle? When does this story take place? Why, as she's falling through the air, does she keep such a firm grip on her pocketbook? There's got to be a reason. Figure it out, and you have the key to the story.
Nice.
I learned the art of collaboration with my Albany friends, John Gaffney and Stephen Danko particularly. And this is an example of a story that was 120 pages long. This was not done for a school assignment. None of these were school assignments. Indeed, I rarely showed them to anybody. It was just production. It was just the thrill of making up a story and see what came out. Here's a sample chapter. Chapter 28, Philip in Trouble. Then Philip did a foolhardy thing. He swung open the plane door, jumped out onto the wing of the stolen plane, opened the door of the plane, grabbed Darlene, that's his girlfriend, lost his balance, and hung precariously onto the plane wing. There they are.
Nice.
This is one day Darlene didn't really want to go on, but... On the next page, the airplane crashes and burns up, and you think maybe I have betrayed my own rule. But Philip and Darlene have discovered that they have unusually strong ankles, and they manage to leap to their safety just in time. The only other person in the plane is the pilot, who seems capably to be doing a backflip out the window. So nobody's actually the worse off except the people who own the plane. Now again, back to Albany. I don't want to in any way dismiss this, my beloved home, which has given me so much. But I wanted to be someplace else when I was a kid. Isn't that what childhood is about? I thought it would be more dramatic and romantic to live in Europe. So I wrote a lot of stories about Europe. Episode in Rome. This was the, bodice ripper, in which the lady up there has a job of fixing the TV antenna for the Pope. Something very important is going to come over Vatican TV any minute.
Gregorie Maguire.
She's got to be there.
Oh my gosh.
Grecian nightmare took place in Greece. I don't actually remember what the nightmare was in this story, but I think it might be her hairdo, but never mind. Something is rotten. Well, you know where that took place. She looks like she stole her necklace from Wilma Flintstone. Sunrise by Sin. Yes, I did go to Catholic school. I already told you. Sunrise by sin, some by virtue fall. We were old enough to be pretentious, and that's a quote from Shakespeare. I wasn't quite sure when I was in 9th grade. I was and remained very innocent how one actually might rise by sin. I mean, I was curious, but I didn't really know. Here's a scene of passion and romance under the willow trees. Notice the willow trees are a good deal larger than the passion and romance. It was a rather tedious scene, actually. I love you, John. I love you, Margaret. I love you, John. You already said that, Margaret. Well, John and Margaret are getting bored, and I, the writer, am getting bored, so I follow one of my cardinal rules. Think if you were at the Pine Hills or the Prime Library and you had just discovered the best book that you had never yet read before, what would be in it? So, in the next chapter, John and Margaret get new jobs as trapeze artists in the circus. Looking at this picture many years later, I think, Margaret looks like she's about 4 months pregnant, don't you? Still, women are working a lot later than they used to. And now I have an answer to my question. Some rise by sin, some by virtue. Fall. exploring all other kinds of writing except for journalism. Journalism was what my father did, and a child wants to distinguish himself from his father. At least I did. I didn't go very far. I stayed being a writer, but I went in different directions. I tried writing fairy tales, like this one about two princesses who look a little bit like Nazi stormtroopers in drag. I tried imitating my favorite stories. John le Carré was just very popular in paperback in the early 70s, so I invented my own Russian and American Cold War scenario. But just as with humor, your job is to surprise your listeners, your audience, to treat them to surprise. The same is true in fiction. If what you think about Russian and American Cold War is that the spies are middle-aged, boring men with trench coats, then I'd surprise my readers and make my spies be middle-aged, boring women in trench coats. This, for any of you who have traveled down to Olana, this is a picture of the staircase in Olana, Frederick Church's house on the hill near Hudson, New York. I tried to write stories that took place in the past and in the present.
Lord of the Rings.
This is, whoever this is, she seems to have escaped from a, traveling company of Hello Dolly. Singing and dancing her way into the hearts of America, but on her nights and weekends off, something more exciting happens, losing her shoes. I also believed heartily as a child in imitating, learning from my favorite stories, and I am of the age and the inclination to have loved the Narnia stories when I found them in the Hermanus Bleecker Library when we moved uptown. I made up my own magic land. I knew a little bit about copyright infringement. I didn't know about Narnia, so I made up my own land called Flyan, which was filled, like most countries of this sort, with dragons and dwarves and elves and unicorns, and it was ruled throughout by a rather loudmouth queen named Ethel Berman. So you see, I guess there has been a Broadway theme all the way along. I didn't know it. This is my last childhood story. I wrote it in 10th grade when I was at VI High School. The Nash Manhattan. It is about a 50-story hotel, another one, with a restaurant on the top floor. Probably the World Trade Center was just going up at that point. I was interested in skyscrapers. In this scene, two kids are descending off the roof on bed sheets they've tied together into a rope. They're trying to break into a room on the 48th floor. The nightclub singer is having a glass of Alka-Seltzer. She thinks she's going crazy seeing two kids on the outside of a skyscraper. The last scene in the story was this, where the two burglars at the bottom left-hand side of the page are being chased and captured by a convention of nuns. Now, I believe in note-taking, and to this day I keep the journal. I don't keep it daily because I have young children at home, but I keep the journal that I started when I was in 6th grade after having read Harriet the Spy. But I do warn people about not going overboard with obsessing about yourself. This is a list, I'm embarrassed to say, of everything that I ate for dinner in the year 1969. It has not served me well. I do believe in trying to push at the front of every way of making art and making meaning that one can. And I believed this when I was a kid, too. Again, we did not have Super 8 projectors like some of the neighborhood friends in our neighborhood. So if I wanted to make a film, Passion, Pride, and A Place to Pray, the only way I could make it would be to teach my cast, that is my younger brothers and sisters, their lines, collect the props, and done their allowance, which was $0.25 each, and go to Westgate, to the Woolworths, where by depositing the quarters in those little booths where you can get strips of pictures, we could act out the play and film it. It was a silent film because it was in black and white, and clearly you can't hear any soundtrack on this.
Nice.